Yo, 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 what up, Mr. Zoo Nation, aka Savage Armor Jones Giraffe, coming at you with another podcast for the Megacolony Trap House. Today we have a special guest.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm the admin of the Chaos Breaker page, and I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not a trap.
That's not what a trap house is. Wait, so you and Robert don't know what a trap house is?
No, I know what it is. I know what it is. I'm just making fun of this.
Because I think even he like mistaken it for like an ad, like a house with full of like traps.
Okay, well, he's a bit too liberal on that part. No, I know what it was. I know what you meant. I was just like, I was making a joke on that.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about deck building.
Ooh, okay, this is an interesting topic. No joke, I had no idea what we're talking about, what the topic was going to be, so this is going to be fun.
Yeah, so last video I did like deck building for like Megacolony and whatnot for the new support, and I was like, like I know everybody has like a different way of deck building, so I had like a few questions that I put down, and I wanted to know like your opinion on some of them.
Yeah, I'm down for that. That's good. That's cool. Yeah.
Alright, so I don't have too many questions here, so because I already know like a lot of it is going to be like a lot of explanations and all that, so it's understandable.
Yeah.
Alright, so with that being said, I guess I'll ask the question. You'll probably give like your opinion and I'll give my opinion, and we'll go on to the next question.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Alright. So, the first question, and oh yeah, actually before I start doing the questions, this is for everybody. So this is for beginners, this is for people who know how to play the game or whatnot, or anybody who's like trying to look for like a guide for it and everything like that. I guess you could technically call this like a guide or anything else like that.
I would say like maybe a kind of a skeleton. Yeah, like a skeleton. Like don't take this 100% to be this is how this person said it, so it has to be built this way. No, it's just a variational way of playing and how you want the deck to function. So just be open to that. I think it's a good thing to keep in mind.
True. So most of the card games we kind of play basically most of the same ones, like Chaos here, of course. We both play Vanguard, we both play Buddy Fight. He's more of an expert at Buddy Fight than I am. Both played Yu-Gi-Oh, so that's a thing.
Oh god, those Yu-Gi-Oh days.
And then I think out of everybody in the Vanguard or the Roundtable group, I think me, Tetsu, and maybe somebody else plays Magic.
I dabble with Magic, but I don't play it often. I've dabbled, but I don't, I can't play it, enough to where I understand the builds well enough, I guess. So I kind of play it very basically in a very basic route when I play Magic. And even so, it's just, yeah, I know a little bit about Magic, but just not like competitively or like that type of level. I play super casual, and I have not touched my Magic deck in so long. So yeah, I think I play standard or modern. I think it's modern, but I don't remember.
It depends on how old everything is.
Lightning Bolt.
Oh yeah, that's definitely modern.
Okay, modern then.
I don't think Lightning Bolt is seen standard in so long.
Okay, then modern. Yeah, so it's modern. I don't know. Usually Lightning Bolt is like the easiest way to figure whether I'm playing modern or standard. So
Okay.
it's modern.
All right. So with that being said, let's start with the first question. Do you build a deck with alternate win cons?
This is a tough one. So I guess it depends on the deck. If the deck can win con multiple way. Well, okay. Wait, like win con, or like a directional winning like thing? Like I'm gonna be a weeb and call it a winning image. Because there's actual win con versus, winning image, win con.
Actually, when you put it that way, like the way I kind of thought of it was like, oh yeah, this deck wins with this particular thing, but if I can't get to it in time, then I have like another way of winning with the deck.
Okay, so yeah, like that's more. I guess that's how I usually call that like the winning image of the deck, really, in a sense. So multiple winning image. Because whenever I hear win con, I legit think, like in Yu-Gi-Oh, Exodia, Vanguard, banish deleting 12 or 13, banish delete 13 with a Gorg and win con that way, or Glendios Limit Break 5.
Oh yeah, that's actually true.
Yeah, because those are legit win con. So that's why I kind of wanted to make a clarity point on that one. I guess, but yeah, it goes back to the same thing. It's dependent on the deck. If the deck can handle multiple variant of win cons, then yes, I will more or less make it where I can fulfill both. But it also depends on how the deck, it depends on the deck build, because a lot of the win cons that are part of the grade 3 lineup relies on the grade 2 and the grade 1. So it's just like, oh, can it balance each other? If it can balance each other, yes, I'm going to throw both win cons in there. Or, like, I think at most I've ever seen a win con, the amount of win cons in a specific deck, maybe like 2 to 3. 3 is like kind of pushing it at that point, because then specific pieces kind of won't work with other types of grade 3s or win cons and everything like that. So I guess, for example, I play Blade Master, and the deck itself has 2 variantal win con, but I have a primarily focused win con and have a secondary win con, which is primarily Blade Master, secondary being Draconic Overlord. They're great, but the deck doesn't 100% focus on the great, or not 100%, like 50%, Blade Master, 50% great. It's more or less 75% Blade Master, 25% great, kind of thing like that.
Okay.
So, depends on the deck. A lot of times, I just have it as one type of win con, and that's how that deck wins. So, but that doesn't mean that, I haven't seen decks go 2 to 3. So, it just depends if it works. Yeah. That's fine. Yep.
Oh, I'm about to say, would you consider like Messiah deleters like a win con? I mean, like an alternate win con in a way?
That would fall under the two win con, or two variational win cons, I guess you can say. Because you have to, but I think in that deck sense, your overall goal is to still harmonics 4 to 5 swing with harmonics. The Grayon variant, the Grayon, tech in there is more or less a kind of at the very beginning, I'm trying to pressure you a little bit to make you drop some stuff, and then, hard roll, multi-swing at your face, next few turns. So I guess you can kind of say it is somewhat of a alternative win con. But how most people build it, it doesn't seem like it, because most people don't play it that way, and they just go, oh, I'm just going to focus on Messiah and have, you know, Deleter as a alternative way of early pressuring kind of thing. My variant, on the other hand, is different, where I can play the Deleter game and not rely on Messiah. Like, if I draw into the Messiah, that's cool. If I don't, I have my alternative to the deleters. So, but, you know, yeah, it comes down to the player. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, that's how I kind of felt like the way it was. Because, you know, let's be real. Damage, stuff going into the damage zone, like, happens. Like, you would think that you would, like, get to the Messiah, then it turns out it hits the damage zone when you wanted to let, like, at least 1 or 2 damage, like, go through. And, you know, I seen it, like, when somebody needed, like, a certain card and they all went to the damage zone. Like, I remember seeing, like, that picture of, like, somebody, like, a while back when all 4 of their Loirs went to the damage zone. I was like, damn.
Oh, recent, or not really recent, I guess it's like maybe about 4 months ago, I went against my friend who had Royal Paladin. I knocked all 4 of his blaster blades into the damage zone.
Oh.
Yeah, it wasn't a fun day for him. It was just like, oh, guess I'm not using this anytime soon with you know, Monarch Sanctuary, or, you know, back in the day with you know, the Alfred stuff. So yeah. This was pre Gancelot, and even if it was post Gancelot, it's just like, well, looks like I have no blaster blade for that extra drive.
Oh my god.
yeah. So it's happened. It has happened. So. But that's usually why you have cards that can find a way to kind of to filter out stuff, so that way you get your pieces without, you know, without all of them dying in one go or something like that. So, yeah.
I would say, like, if I had to choose a deck that I kind of sort of did that, well, now I'm trying that out with Great Nature, actually, because the way I ran, like, when we had the Spring Fest, like, back in April, I had, let's see, 4 Leopolds, 3 Bisons, and 2 Hamsukes. Because I was like, Hamsuke is a cool card, but I was also worrying about going against Murakumo. And I'm like, once Hamsuke and Leopold use their ability, they're vanilla units, and then
on the Vanguard,
yeah. And then it's like, if Hamsuke, if I don't have the grade 1 and the grade 2 Hamsuke, and I ride into the grade 3, I'm just gonna get, like, what, a marker, and then that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So so that's why I kept them at 2, because I was like, if I get him, I get him. If I don't, I don't. No hard feelings. But at the same time, like, now that we have XL2, and now that I have the ability to, like, abuse Hamsuke more, now it's kind of like, now it kind of still depends in a way, because I still think that there's some use for XL1, so it's like, it depends. If I ride into Hamsuke first, I would go XL2. If I don't, I ride into XL1.
Yeah, I think the marker-wise, it's just super variant, or it's super reliant on, you know, your situation. So that's why, like, it's not always 100%. Oh, you know, you always go into this marker no matter what. No, it's not the case. If you're ahead, or, like, you can benefit off of a different marker, you go for that marker, you know?
Sure.
Because sometimes Pale Moon, as much as, you know, hand potential, hand potential wise, it's still, it needs it. But then at the same time, against specific decks, you don't have to focus on that, and you can benefit off of XL1 because that power boost is just nuts.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Although I have yet to see a decent reason for somebody to play Protected.
Yeah.
Protect 1 is just too good.
I think depending on the matchup, not XL, Protect 2 can benefit. But it's very matchup based. Like, you have to get that correct matchup to make it work. Otherwise, with all the running around of, Link Joker, Kagura, Narukami for like really 100 prime example of things, that Protect 2 is literally not going to do anything.
Oh yeah.
So like you're just asking to lose if you're going to use Protect 2 against those types of decks. So yeah. So it's a match per match basis, in my opinion.
Which I think that's what Bushiroad designed it for, so that's pretty good, like on their part, design wise.
Yeah.
So second question: Do you put in cards that specifically counters a certain matchup?
Oh, I know where that one is, why that one got at. Yeah, that's a prime example reason. Yeah. So personally speaking, I think it depends on what the matchup is. Now, people are going to disagree with me here on this wholeheartedly. I understand why people will disagree with me on this. Back during G-era, and even like pre-G-era, no, this is still, no, it has to be G-era actually, because G-era was the introduction to well, no. When were unlockers? When were unlockers introduced? I actually kind of forgot. Like the original unlockers.
Wasn't Metamorphox the original unlocker? Like before we started getting like reverses and all that?
No, that was after reverses. But yeah, no, before Legion. Yeah, I think so. Metamorphox and all those. Okay, yeah. So before G era even started, and I think like around Legion era ish. To be perfectly honest, back during that era, BT15, Infinite Rebirth. Yeah, Infinite Rebirth. I ran a Novel deck, and I actually did tech I teched a one Kagura unlocker, and it was I don't remember its name. Georgette. I think that's what it's Steel Dragon Georgette. Because I knew that the matchup against Link Joker was a tough one for Kagura, especially if they got off, all their locks going. So I actually picked in the Steel Dragon Georgette in the case if I actually ever went against a Link Joker, which actually never happened. But it was a good tactic just in case, because I could always search for it with the Novel cards. Back then I did, but that was because I started in the game, wasn't competitive, or all this other stuff. When G-era happened, and the introduction to poker, whatever you call it, the Crayon Elemental that lets on play Sub Plus 1. If you have a Crayon Elemental G unit up, you can unlock one or something like that. I don't remember. I never played unlockers. Not because I mained Link Joker. Even when I didn't main Link Joker, I didn't even bother, because I knew my matchup against Link Joker and most of the other decks didn't really worry. I didn't worry about it too much because I played against them so much that I kind of figured out their gimmick beforehand, and so it's just like, oh, okay, your main gimmick is going to be doing this, 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 and this. And if you're not doing this, then that means you're not playing it at its optimal thing. So I had an expectation kind of thing where it's like, oh, against this matchup, if you don't do this, I'm taking the advantage. If you do, I have to keep up. If I play against Link Joker, how do I beat this? Okay, well, because I main it, what's the straight up counter to it? Okay, do I do this? You just think of like alternative strategies rather than, oh, I'm just going to commit and try to plus off of it as hard as I can kind of mindset. Because from what I get, a lot of players like to do that, where it's like, oh, I need to play all these cards and get the most out of it, and that's the only way I can win in Vanguard. No, that's not how you do it, and that's where people hate Link Joker because of that, because they're like, oh, but I have to commit to get all this advantage, and then I get screwed over by luck. There's ways around it. I'm sorry, but I've played against Link Joker. It's kind of hilarious. I'm gonna bring up this one story where at one of the regionals, I think it might have been Pomona, or it could be it's either Pomona or Anaheim. I don't remember. I think it was Pomona because it wasn't in that Talbot Lane in Anaheim. I was using Kagero, and this was Stride and everything. I was running Dragonic Overlord, Break Ride with Legion and Legend Act in there. So it was before Destiny, but after Legend. Well, what happened was I was playing against I think it was like round 3 or something like that. I figured out that my opponent was playing Messiah when they flipped up their first Vanguard, and it was hilarious because we had a good time. Me and my opponent were talking a lot. We were just like playing and talking. He goes to, I wrote grade 3 first. He writes his grade 3, which was normally any I think it was like Ultra Ego Neo or Ultra Ego. I don't remember at that time which one it was. But literally, he looked at his G units. He took his G deck because he pitched across the Stride. He looks at his G unit or G deck, and I was literally looking at him. I was like, I'm not trying to sound like an ass, but I'm pretty sure this is what you're gonna do. And I literally named off every type of move that he was gonna literally do for that turn, and he was super surprised and in awe at the fact that I even knew what he was gonna do before he even did it. Like, it literally made it sound like I knew what he had in his hand to play and what he's gonna actually do. And I was like, yeah, you're gonna do this, you're gonna straight into this Messiah, you're gonna call this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and plus like 3. I was like, and it shocked my opponent that they knew, or that they saw, that they heard me say all of this, because not many people can do that. And it surprised them. I was like, yeah, I have the deck, I play it. I made the deck. So it wasn't, surprising. I ended up winning the game, even so, because I knew my matchup. That's all. So, all in all, over like a TLDR version, no, I don't run tech cards unless it's super, super necessary. So, that's usually the case. How I play my decks.
That's actually true. Like, actually, I remember like a while back when like Real Elementals sort of thing, like when Kira was I remember going against my friend Messiah, and he saw that I tagged in what was that Real Elemental, the one that like you Soul Blast 2, was not hard.
No, you Soul Blast 1. That was poker.
Yeah, poker. Yeah, it was Soul Blast 1. You unlock a card. He was all like, that's not going to matter, it's just going to be locked. And I was like, I'm not using it for the Link Joker matchup. I'm using it because at this particular time I was playing Yaki. So it was there because I didn't have access to Metamorphox, so I was using that as an alternative.
right. Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
to like unlock all the Hyakis and stuff.
Right. Yeah. You gotta play. You have to use some alternatives if you have no way to bypass against block.
And it was just there, like, oh, my dude go against each other, and it'll probably work. But I do remember. I remember when Grade 1, when 7 C's Grade 1 Rush was a thing, and there was this guy, and I think it was like the most interesting counter build to that particular deck. He used Night Rose, but what made his Night Rose build interesting was that he used Cocytus Reverse in his build.
Yep, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. It was a Night Rose deck that had Cocytus Reverse, I think typed at like 2 or 3, and it was a way to kind of play the no strike game, because you can still limit break.
Sure.
Yeah, and so I mean at that point you're just playing vanilla Vanguard, or not really vanilla Vanguard. You're playing just regular Vanguard, but you have limit break going. So the limit break was still pretty strong. I remember that. Someone actually used Messiah against that matchup too, and they played the freeze ray variant.
God, Freeze Ray Messiah was a thing.
Yeah, it's more or less like it's a way to bypass specific types of things. So like, if you remember back in the day, Melon Womble combo was annoying. Like it was super annoying to deal with. Well, Freeze Ray Messiah was a actual counter to it, because Melon would actually get locked before it gets sent back into the deck, which actually stops the whole process of Melon looping the whole thing. And that was actually a valid, counter to it. And so most people teched in Freeze Ray Messiah. I was one of the few that did, but that was mostly because it's just like, Melon Wombo combo was just so degenerate that there was no way to stop it in generic Messiah. You had to find a way to kind of make it where they had a field, and so Freeze Ray helped with that. So I guess you can say that was a tech in that point, but eventually it was going to be something that was going to be found anyways. That's going to be a type of deck. Also, Freeze Ray overall as a general card screwed over a lot of other decks too, because a lot of decks that liked multi-swing, like Aquaforce, that was very prevalent back in the day. That was not Novice resist Novice. They also died to Freeze Ray Messiah, because it's just like, I'm gonna title swing. Okay, lock it. It's like, well, can't do anything about it now. You just literally locked them out of their multi-swing at that point. So that was like a counter to that, and then there's like, it was a good way to stop multi-swing decks. So it helped. Oh, and it stopped Great Nature, because It would have sucked for it sucked for a lot of Great Nature players, because they would be like, okay, your turn. And I'm like, alright, right Freeze Ray Messiah. I can't strike yet because you're a Grade 2 swing. And then I keep my damage low. They go to their turn. They ponder how to fight this, because the moment they commit a Crayon Tiger and another card, that card that was not the Crayon Tiger was going to get locked. Like, immediately. And so it's just like, yeah, this isn't gonna be fun. Like, they have to, play around it. And by then, it's like, okay, I'm gonna play around it for a turn. You just screwed yourself for a turn of pressure. And then Messiah's just gonna come out of nowhere and just, wail on you.
That
so
was
just kind of, yeah.
My bad.
Oh, no. I was just gonna say that was, it was a bad situation either way. That's all I was gonna say.
That was like the second most hardest thing about back in the day.
Yeah. So I guess it's situational. I'll say for me, situational. Most of the time, never. Well, not never, but most of the time I won't do it. There's just no point. Definitely.
that that Grand Blue build too. You know what they also used? They also used that Grey Elemental that was technically like the grade 1 version of Sea Breeze, but it was like for grade 1 rush.
Twitter Run.
Yeah, that one.
yeah, Twitter Run. Yeah, a lot of decks actually used Twitter Run too. Like that can act like if you can easily access Twitter Run, you do it. So like Luard at that time used it. They typed in the one Twitter Run because they knew they can get it.
That's true.
Yeah, so it was one of those kind of situations.
So like now in premium, now that we don't have the grade 1 and grade 2 rushes anymore, I think the only other card I feel like a lot of people normally tech in for like other decks specific matchups is Hollow.
Yeah, I see that a lot too. I see a lot of lists that actually use Honolulu in their as a tech of like maybe a 2 of or 3 of against specific matchups. Yeah. Was there something else you wanted to ask about that?
Oh yeah, well, not necessarily, because I know like people use it because you know we have like a lot of multi-swing and what's his face definitely still exists. As on like super rush and stuff like that. Not super, I don't know.
Multi-superior, right? Yeah.
Multi-superior ride like Ezo and stuff like that.
Right.
And then like I know like Nova grapplers are starting to become like a thing now because they can do like multi-swing with like the victors and all that. So I know like a lot of people use it for those specific matchups. So it's like they run it in a counter where even if they don't go into those matchups, it still won't matter. It's just as long as they're prepared. And then I remember people using what was his name, Bobo, like for the Gize matchup.
Oh yeah. A lot of Cray Elementals we're seeing pretty much on a lot of matchups, really. Bobo for the recent, like when Geese was first released, Bobo was just literally one of the best cards to run. Just because no damage Geese was a thing. Also 0 damage Geese with Linios. That was another one.
Yeah, I remember that.
Let's see, Bobo, Honolulu. I think those are the main two that. Oh, and Sea. If we go to like G guard wise, Cray Elementals just as much. Sea Breeze and also this one also prevalent for a fair bit of time. So, yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. It's a prevalent thing that you usually see.
And then for me personally, every once in a while I would do this in like a premium Megacolony build, but there is Brilliant Blister. So if there's like a lot of decks around that specifically has restanding Vanguards in the meta, I would definitely run it.
Okay, yeah. If it was, it's hard to say whether it's like, you know, you're taking it for a specific matchup or you're just doing it overall. Because like you could say, because for Brilliant Blister, you can say almost any deck that tried to restand their Vanguard in some way, which was like almost a quarter of the meta at the time. You know, Overlord, Overlord, Nova Grappler, D-Police, Gear Chronicle. Yeah, there was a fair bit, and so totally understandable when it's multi-clan. So it's not really like specifically, you know, a matchup. It's like, oh, I'm countering this mechanic, really. Because I did somewhat the same way with Belmog in Kagero.
Oh god, that card.
Yeah, that was fun times. It was one of those kind of things where it's just like, oh, you know, you get a really good benefit off of Belloc at like the most optimal timing. Just because, oh, you know, why wouldn't I, you know, guard 5k guard, and then it's like, oh, none of your rested units are gonna disappear out of nowhere through some sort of effects. I'm just gonna pop that card now, so you can't benefit off it. Like Great Nature would, without like a resist or something like that, would die to Belloc because it's just like, oh, I'm gonna swing this side first. Okay, Belloc and something else, no hit, Belloc, kill the attacker, and then it's like, oh, Crown Tiger's dead. Crown Tiger's is just no use now because you can't restand that one unit anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess like I wouldn't say like matchup based. It's more or less a mechanic based. You're playing it against a specific type of mechanic that's being prevalent at the time. So in terms of Brilliant, was, you know, a restanding mechanic.
Let's see. Now we got that one out the way for number 3, which is going to be an interesting question. Have you ever done a no heals build?
In what type of situation?
No, like just build a deck with no heals in it.
Once. And then I scrapped it. One time, and I scrapped it because it didn't really work. I know my friend did it. 16 crit does.
16 crit does. Damn.
Back in the day. Back in the day. I think pre-set 15. Pre-set 15? Yeah, pre-set 15. 16 crit does. What's the thing? The closest I've ever gotten to a no-heal build was pre-Glorious Justice with Aquaforce. It was 4 draw, 8 crit, 4 front, and that was, or I think I went 6 draw, 2 front, and like 4 crit or something like that. And mostly because at the time, pre my Glorious Justice for Aquaforce, for some odd reason, I always drew the heal for the most inconvenient time, and it just didn't work. Aquaforce just could not, for the life of it, you know, maintain a good advantage of some sort of like hand advantage with just jank, and you just couldn't do anything with it. Pre my Glorious Justice.
Oh yeah, that Aquaforce was like
that's the closest I've ever done it. I've done it once, and I scrapped it immediately after I tried it twice. I was like, nah, you know what? I'm just gonna wait until, you know, future support comes out or something, because I'm not about to go through all this pain or annoyance just to do it.
Me personally, I always kind of wanted to try one out. I was even thinking of like, for shits and giggles, try it for 3 nature units. Cause like, using like all the, what is it, 4 draws? What is it, 4 draws, like 8 fronts, 4 something like that.
Oh. Yeah, 8 front, 8 crit, 4 draw. Yeah. Or wait.
No,
4 draw,
4
8 front, 4 crit.
Yeah.
I could see that. I mean, there's probably some people who, you know, who've probably done that before just for the hell of it. So.
It's like I have yet to see like anybody try it out during like the reboot or whatnot. Like, I think it's probably possible, but I'm not too sure.
It might be, but I mean, most people would rather keep the heals in there because you never know what can happen with standard. And considering the game is pretty fast paced in some way, shape, it's pretty fast. You know, taking damage and having the 20k shield does help in standard.
It really does.
Yeah, over the 15. Like, that 5k can change, you know, between a 1-card card to a 2-card card. You know, and advantage is a big thing in standard.
So that's true. I do remember, like, I think the last time I heard somebody try to do that was like pre-G guards with Gear Chronicle. Somebody came third place with
I mean, you can. Wait, in standard?
it. No,
in post or pre.
Like
pre-G.
yeah, it was in G era, but it was like a little bit after Soul Strike came out. So that's when they got like
It's next stage.
yeah, that's when they got next stage. And it was like a little bit after that somebody went third place with 16 crit, Gear Chronicles. And this was like, remember, this is like before like G Guards.
Oh, they probably abused Melon combo. 16 crit Melon combo. Because Melon combo was a thing back then, right? At that moment.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember the deck off the top of my head. But if it was at the time Melon came out, yeah, then I would say it might have been a 16 crit Melon combo or something like that. Which, I mean, a lot of people don't know the matchup, and it is, if you take people by surprise, it can, pull off games out of nowhere. I mean, look at the recent, the previous Worlds. The person that won was a Megacolony player. And you know how much hype that went the moment they're like, oh my god, Gradora is so good, blah blah blah. I was like, are you kidding me? It's like, yes, the deck is pretty solid, but no. So, like, not trying to trash the planner, really. It's just like, I don't know. Some of the people I think didn't expect the rogue matchup, really.
I think people see results more than they see matchups. That's how I kind of see it as, because it's like any deck, no matter like how little results it gets, like overall, if it wins once, everybody's on that build. Everybody's like, oh, what's the build? What's the deck list? How did you like win with this particular build with like nobody else can?
I mean, I had a similar kind of thing with my Messiah build, or with my standard Messiah deck, because the default that people played their Joker deck was, oh, you play the Ghastly Nail variant, which is you draw heavy build where you draw into your pieces and you just hard roll against your opponent. But the thing was, I tried that build on release, and I hated it with the passion. And I looked up a lot of other type of lists, and a lot of them were like, oh, no, you run the Deleter variant because then you don't deck out as fast, because that was the downside to the Ghastly Nail variant, was you deck out fast. Oh. And if you played against a stall deck, you auto lose, because they'll just stall you out until you deck out. Because some of the Messiah effects are mandatory, so you can't, choose not to do it. Which, that's why you have to play I'm gonna play the alternative game where I don't deck out, and I still have the pressure in some way. And so people were questioning why I dropped down my Ghastly Nails to like 1 in the deck, out. That's the one problem with the deck. Oh, and Ghastly now has like no threat in the Vanguard side. It literally doesn't. It's like, oh, I swing for 23, or I swing for 13, 18, and that's all I'm doing. So it's just like, really? Like, or Soul Blast 1, lock a card, draw a card. That's all you're doing. That's all. That's like, yeah, you're cycling cards out of your hand, but it's like, that's it. There's no threat behind it. Whereas at least with the Deleter build, you delete your opponent's Vanguard, so they're at 0, and they have to commit more guard. And if you hit crits, it's even harder to stop. You know, that's the kind of like the other side of how you play how the deck runs. People also questioned me why I dropped Lady Battler down to 2 and put Vect up to 3, and mostly because Lady Battler did something similar to Ghastly now, where Lady Battler speeds up your deck, your deck out. Like, there's a pattern to it where it's just like, I hate decking out, so I'm not about to deck myself out for no good reason. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, like there's a lot of those kind of, oh, you know, this build is super good, or because of the results, this deck is super great because of reasons, but what they don't understand is, like, in a competitive sense, that's not what you're trying to look for. You need to be able to fight every single fight, and the deck has to survive in some way, shape, or form. If it can't survive it, you're essentially, like, losing at that point. So, yeah. So that's why I never liked specific types of builds, and I try to tweak up the builds a little bit to fit my style. And so that's why, like, a lot of people are like, oh, how are you winning with this thing? Because this is my style, not yours. And what works for me doesn't work for you, more or less. So that's how I look at it. Yeah.
Now, do you believe, like, if somebody were to try like a no heals, like a deck with like no heals in it whatsoever, do you think that there's like a specific way you're supposed to play it? Because it's one of those things where it feels like if you don't know how to play without heals, don't try it.
I think it depends. Yeah, so it does come down to how the focus is, how the deck focuses. So if you're playing a no heal variant, that means your deck should be aggressive, or focuses. It's either going to be aggressive, or it's going to focus on hand advantage to compensate for no heals. You know, that idea. The closest thing I've actually, no, there's actually one friend that I know who actually had a 0 heal dark irregular deck, and the deck itself, he told me, it's no heals because a lot of times it's just gonna soul charge to heal, and there's no point at that point to run it. I'd rather play more triggers that actually benefit in some way, shape, or form. So he's going a little more aggressive, and if he can somehow, you know, get the pieces to go off pretty easily, pretty well, then he can win in turn 4 or turn 3 even under no life king. For dark regulars, he's done it before. He's done it against me like twice. I've actually lost to it about once or twice because I had no clue what the heck I was going up against, and he legit just pulled it out and got everything and just went off. And I was like, this is tough. This is a tough build to go against. Like he opened the pieces well enough, and you know, you have to have that, you know, mindset of how to play that deck, because if you revert to your style that you have the heals in deck and you're trying to play a no heal build while you're, you know, playing it with that old style, it's gonna kind of screw you up a little bit, if you know what I mean. It's like, oh, I'm gonna take this incoming 3 damage and think that there's a heal, but there's not, because you don't have any in there. So you have to kind of micromanage your, incoming damage and all this other stuff. So yeah, I would say there is like a mindset or a playstyle that you have to have for a no-heal deck.
Honestly,
because I tried it and I was just like, nope, this doesn't work.
That was funny because you answered the question I was about to ask. So I was like, was this before what's his face? Was this before Blader Mouse? Or after Blader Mouse came out?
Oh yeah, no, this is after. This is this is standard.
Yeah, when you said no Life King, I was like, oh wait, this is standard. Okay, never mind. That answers my question.
yeah. Because I just remembered about it. Because you rarely ever go against no heal decks, and the one time my friend busted that deck out, I was just like, oh yeah, I forgot this was a thing. So yeah.
All right, now time for the most controversial question of all 5 of these questions. What is your opinion on net decking? Do you believe that like net decking killed card games in general, or do you think that net decking is something that everybody should be doing, or anything else like that?
I do it. If I'm straight up being honest, I do it. I net deck. So I think it's more or less like, all right. Yes, it's a controversial topic. I totally agree. Net decking itself has been seen as, negative way because all you're doing is copying this. You're not being creative. Blah blah blah. Well, the problem with being creative is that you have to have some type of skeleton, in my opinion, and that's where the net decking comes from. The net decking is providing you a skeleton, and then the creativity comes from you playtesting the deck and then altering it to how you can play it. Like, that's where I feel, the argument is in terms of how you want to kind of change up the deck a little bit, be creative, I think that's kind of the thing about it. I don't like the argument how, net decking is evil, bad, you should do it, blah blah blah. In all honesty, if you ask any, I don't want to like generalize this, but I feel like majority of the players that I've seen in terms of competitiveness, they all in some way net deck, because a lot of people rely on the deck lists from Japan to kind of get a gauge on whether you should play it this way, you should play it that way, all this other stuff. That's also where the Cocytus Night Rose thing came from. That's from a JP build, to be perfectly honest. I saw it. Hell, even half of my decks are essentially net decked, with only like a minor variance in terms of how the deck is run. So, like, for example, my Link Joker deck itself, it's mostly net decked, and then I tweaked it up because I felt like specific lineups didn't work in my favor. JP runs 4 Lady Battlers. I have it at 2. I run more Vex than Lady Battlers. But again, this depends on your research. Like, I've researched it so much, and I was just like, oh, a lot of people ran 4 Lady Battlers, and then I see these 1 or 2 decks that ran 2. And I'm just kind of like, why? Why are people running this amount? Why are people doing this? What's the focus? You have to read behind it. You have to actually look behind the reasoning on why people do what they're doing. You can't just net deck it and be like, oh, that's how they built it, so of course it's better. No, that's not how you play a deck. There's a reason why you net deck, and there's a reason, like, how net decking isn't always 100% foolproof of winning. Like, you can get someone to net deck a deck, and I can still whoop their butts. Because, prime example, and, yeah. So, prime example is, I've actually faced a few people who actually net decked a Bermuda Triangle deck, off of, Japan, from the Japan builds. And it was top tier, with the Lisa Lots and all this other, none of the new grade 2, the Melody grade 2, blah, blah, blah. But it's essentially the best build you can play it with. Well, I play Kagero, and there's like 1 or 2 players who thought, oh yeah, I have the best build here. It's, and because Bermuda is tier 1, I'm gonna win all my games. I literally, because I don't play competitive as much anymore. I don't have the motivation anymore. But when I do have the motivation, I do it. I legit just came up, brought up my Kagero deck, and I was like, I dare you to say that against me. I played them, obliterated them with Kagero, and this is pre-Blade Master. Post-Blade Master, I just beat them hella hard, even easier. Blade Master just gave me the crutch. It was just like, oh, post Blade Master crutch, pre Blade Master. You have to play smart. That's all.
True.
And I still beat it. It wasn't that bad. It was hard, yes, because I didn't have full retire builds. But you have to know how to make your opponent neg. So it's just a matter of how you play your style, or how your style of play is. And it just so happens that I knew the matchup enough to where I obliterated all the Melody units, and they had nothing left. And so by the time it got to me, I just double swung. This was with the Great in my build, so I literally just double swung with the Great, and they lost every time.
Oh shit.
Yeah, like I had Berserks to kill off their rears, I had Bars to kill off rears. You just have to play smart. That's all. And people wonder, it's like, oh, BT is such a powerful tier 1 deck, how do you beat it? You need to know your matchup. You need to know what your focus is, That's all it is. So, in my honest opinion, net decking is good only if you know what the hell the deck is doing. You can't just expect to net deck and win, is what I'm trying to say.
That's true.
But net decking, it's a good way. It's a good thing. I do it. A lot of people do it. People who say that they don't, they're lying out of their ass. To be honest, they're lying. They are lying. Like, I'm sorry. It's people net deck hella hard. I mean, even in Yu-Gi-Oh, like if you look at Yu-Gi-Oh players, they hella hard. They just net deck. Oh my god, what was it? I think there was a Vine with I'm gonna straight up call him out on this. Well, he did it. He did the Vine. I think it was Megacolony. He did a Vine of someone winning, like, when casual players see a deck list that wins, when competitive players see a deck list that wins. And it's the comparison of someone buying the cards or having the cards already, kind of thing. So when you're a competitive player, you don't have the cards and you see it top, you're like, oh, I gotta pick this up now, kind of thing. So I was just like, that's like literally 100% net decking at that point. So
oh my god.
it was hilarious. Like I just had to take that because it was just like, man, all the old Vines for Yu-Gi-Oh was just legit. Like it was just on point.
They were.
So, yeah, but yeah, no. Overall, net deck, I think it's a good step to how to get to where you want. Is what I'm trying to say. So use it as a way to improve yourself. Is what I mean.
Yeah, most of the time, like I will admit, like it took me a while to like it kind of took me a while to get out that stubborn mood of like trying not to net deck because like always wanted to be that person who came up with the build instead of looking up the build.
Yeah, but the problem with this is that because Japan has the cards way ahead of us, whatever we would have thought up, Japan would have probably have already thought up. The one thing that the English side actually thought up first before JP was probably the Twa turbo riding.
Really?
The Anj Twa turbo riding. Yeah, I looked it up. The English side actually thought up that maneuver first before Japan did, even though Japan had the stuff before us.
That's surprising.
Yeah. So, I mean, in a way, it's good. At least we have one thing, really.
Yeah, I guess like Japan getting everything before us will kind of make sense that we'll be neck decking from them.
Yeah.
But like homebrewing doesn't hurt either. Like sometimes it'll just be best to look at those cards that like at first you're kind of like, oh, there's no point in really using it though, but then maybe there might be a reason to use it, you know.
But that's more or less playing the tech game. That's playing the tech game. When you're net decking, you're taking the whole skeleton of the deck rather than like just 1 or 2 cards. You know, at least that's how I view net decking. Is you're taking every single card that the person played and making it your deck.
True.
That or at least that's how most people define net decking. So, yeah. Teching cards is a different story, and you know that's the creativity part. But a lot of it, you know, you need a skeleton. You know, you need the base build of how the deck is gonna be, and then you know you tweak it out. It's like, oh, you know, this guy ran 8 crit 4 draw. I'm gonna try 7 crit 5 draw because you know my luck has been pretty jank or something. You know, and maybe it works that way.
Sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. I like the idea of net decking, to be honest. It helps. I mean, it's not saying like I'm not creative myself. It's just like sometimes, because I think I've tried this. I've tried it where I didn't look up deck lists and you know tried to build the deck all on my own, and something like, I mean, you can get through it by playtesting. You know, you playtest against someone, and then over time you start seeing, oh, you know, okay, this card's not that great, situational wise this is not that good, or this is good, blah blah blah. But over time it's better to look at a deck that's already, you know, pre-finalized by somewhere, and then, you know, tweak it then. You know, it's a lot easier. So, like, if I was in Japan, if I was in Japan, yeah, I'd probably do the, you know, if I had the cards first, I'd try to make the deck myself rather than, you know, look up lists. But, you know, once people start winning with it at, like, local card shops and stuff like that, you start asking people, you know? Yeah.
Honestly, I think another interesting thing about net decking, in my honest opinion, is looking up multiple builds and trying to get, like, let's say you're trying to figure out, how many ratios should I run this card at, and you know, you see some people running at like a full play set, maybe you see somebody running at 3 or anything else like that. Like, I feel like one of the most difficult things about deck building in general is finding out ratios.
Yeah, I do agree, because, like, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. The deck, I don't know. I feel like it's pretty simple, right? I mean, Bermuda just runs like 8 grade 2s and, you know, 11 grade, or 10 and 11 grade 1s and like 13 grade 3s. That's like the easiest one, right? 13 grade 3s, 11 1s, and like 8 to 9 2s. That seems pretty simple.
That uncanny valley.
Right. So usually for a deck, me and my friend. So this was before I lost motivation to compete in regional events and everything like that. To be honest, me and my friend have been playing. A friend of mine that I've known for so long, who've played Vanguard with me. Since a lot, like BT12 maybe, Binding Force. Like, me and him started to play a lot more and meet up more, and I got, he's one of my really, really good friends that play Vanguard. After playing a lot, we kind of got towards a kind of a skeletal ratio that we kind of go by, and then we kind of tweak it up after a while. The skeletal ratio is obviously, your 17 zeros, 1 starter, 16 triggers. That doesn't change. Grade 1s usually are, from our testing, has always been about 13 to 14. Grade 2s has been about 11 to 12, and then grade 3s has been about 8 at average. You can bump that up. You can bump up the grade 3 count, but you tend to bump down the 1s or 2s depending on which one you want to focus on. And so that's kind of like the base average way of building a deck in terms of ratios of 1s, 2s, and 3s. And that still goes towards in standard. If you look at a lot of the decks, it's either 14. You notice the 1-2 ratio is like 14-11 or 13-12 or 12-13, depending on the focus and stuff like that. That's just how it is. Bermuda's the prime outlier where they just run 11-8, 11-9, and then 13 threes, but that's Bermuda. So I think that's kind of like the ratio thing that I usually go by, and that's how if you notice a lot of the deck lists, if you look up if you do the research behind it, you'll notice a trend with it. Like, if you count their 1s and 2s and 3s, you can see a trend, a type of trend, commonality, that's what it was, a commonality among all the decks. They're all going to run this amount of this amount of this amount of that. There's a reason behind it, and that's why I'm just like, whenever you look at decks, especially if you're net decking, look at why they're doing it, and if possible, you can always research it through YouTube as well, because sometimes those decks get shown on YouTube from Japan, like Japan shops that record the matches and stuff like that. Like the recent VGCS that they had, I legit just found like a few videos pertaining to it, and they posted it up on YouTube, and I'm watching it to kind of get an idea on how people play. And so that's how you get better, is by you looking at the reasoning behind their play. Like, oh, how come you run that many of this card? How come you run less of this card? Blah, 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 kind of thing.
True.
Yeah, so sorry if I babble. That's kind of like how I see, these kind of things. I sound like I know it all, but I don't. It's just kind of like a basic knowledge thing in my kind of where I'm looking at.
I believe that. But you know what's weird? How it's weird how the OG series, like when it was like still like Limit Break, and when it was still, Legion and all that, 8 was like the magic number for grade 3s. And then
it was. Yeah.
When G era came around, it became 6 to 8 grade 3s.
Some actually went, I think the range in G era was more or less 6 to 10 actually. It was 6 to 10. I actually saw some builds that went 10 grade 3s. I think, if I remember correctly, Kagero went up to like 9 at one point, 10 at some point. D-Police went to like 10, maybe 11. Because you
Oh
remember how
yeah,
Deep Police went guard break route?
yeah, the guard break route. That's understandable though.
Yeah, so some decks literally just benefited off the extra grade 3 that they got. It was just like, oh, I'm gonna run 10, and besides, it's like, oh, if I'm gonna stride, you know, I'm gonna need the 3 anyway. So if I bump up the grade 3 count, lower the stride fodder count, you know, it's almost as if I'm playing a stride fodder anyways. The only thing is about riding up is, you know, what you're gonna have to watch out for.
What about the most jank grade 3 build of all time?
Which one?
Red green leaf. Or green leaf dragon or something like that.
Oh. I rarely ever went against that. To be perfectly honest, I rarely ever went against that.
I wanted to build it for like shits and giggles, but I was like, I don't even know what the grade 2 and grade 1 lineup would be.
At the time, it was probably units that benefited off of like free booming or free calls and stuff like that. You know, that's probably where like Dream Spin Ashas came from. The Dream Spin, Jingle Flower, you know, anything that dealt with multi-named and stuff like that. You know, that they benefit off of it. So, yeah.
And for the last question, it's kind of like it's a weird question because it's kind of like a combination of like a couple of questions from before. So the first question I asked was, do you build a deck with an alternate win con? And the second one was, do you put cards in a deck that specifically counters a certain matchup? So this question is, do you build do you have or do you build a deck to go against your matchups, or do you build it for the win con?
Oh, okay. So do I build it for a specific matchup, or do I build it just focused on how the deck is supposed to run? Period.
Yeah, that's the question.
A little bit of both. More or less the okay. A little bit of majority of the time how I build my decks, it's more or less both. Like, it's to counter matchups, but at the same time focus on its own, you know, win con or winning image. It's hard to say because like I want to say like 75% of the time it's win con focused. 25% of the time it's match based purpose. So I guess prime example here is my with my Kagero deck. I know Link Joker has a really good matchup against other decks like Bermuda and stuff like that, so I wasn't really worried. I was more worried with Kagero because I don't always want to play Link Joker. People apparently hate me playing Link Joker, so I try not to use it as much. And people, and you know, if you ask a lot of my friends, they'll understand. They can tell you why they don't like me playing Link Joker. Just period. But back to the point. When I was running Kagero, I had a problem before Blademaster came out. I had the problem of people just making a field out of nothing and keeping that field. And so a lot of times I'm just like, well, I don't really like that. How can I actually wipe out that type of board? And so I waited, and that's where Blademaster came in. And so now the Blademaster build is more or less built in a way to counteract people who like to just build a big board and expect that big board to stay. So I guess like for that one, it's for those type of matchups, but at the same time, that's also a win con in its own way against many other decks. So, yeah. Yeah, so I guess 75-25 would be like a good ratio of saying my focus on it. Focus is basically more win con than anything, but at the same time, it's also built about the matchups too.
Okay, I see where you're going with that.
yeah. I know it's a little convoluted because it's just like, but at the same time, you're building a deck focused on trying to counter specific things. Because if you can't build it to counter specific things, why the hell are you even using it in the first place? Like, I could have just went, oh, I don't want to play Blade Master. I'll just play Overlord the Great. Well, okay, I can play Overlord the Great, but then I get screwed against specific matchups, like Bermuda, for example. You know, like over time, Bermuda just has way too much advantage if you just let them have it. You know, yes, I can play against it, but I have a way to play against it. But I had to go through leaps and bounds just to do it. Why would I not use a card that lets me kind of just do all that in one shot, you know? So sometimes when you build a deck, I feel like you do want to play it where you counteract specific meta or specific decks, but at the same time, it's also fulfilling I'm playing it's the matchup based, or I mean, it's just a win con based of what your deck is normally doing. So.
I agree with that. Have you so yeah, that kind of makes sense actually, now that I think about it, because in the next question, which was actually pretty interesting, I was like, would there be like a thing where you're like, oh, you know, I'm building, you know, I got the win con ready and all that, I got everything that's set up for it, but what if I go against this particular deck that everybody else is using right now? Let me take out a couple of cards and switch these cards in because I believe that this is going to be the thing to go against that particular matchup.
Oh, you mean build your deck based around one specific matchup?
Well, not one specific matchup, but like, have you ever like built it? It's basically against multiple matchups at all, because you know there is probably a such thing as like building a deck just to counteract everything that's in the meta. But I guess like there has been times, especially I've been guilty of it like at least once or a couple of times, where I was like, hey, I need to play this card because this deck exists and I know that everybody's gonna be playing this deck. So despite that I already got the win con, I got everything else, let me find something that can counteract it but not completely throw off my synergy.
Oh, that. I've done that in G-Era. I've done that. V-Era, I've yet to find a reason to. Yeah, V-Era, I've yet to find a reason to. There's no, like, there's only a specific amount of cards you can really use in V-Era. Like, I guess pre-Heroic Evolution I did, because cards were, there wasn't really good amount of cards you can really use. Like, for example, Jet Shaft was a good one for Link Joker to run because you force intercepts. And then the other one was a 7k grade 1 where you kill off a rear guard, counterblast one, kill off a rear guard, one of your rear guards, bind an entire column on your opponent's side of the field, or bind that one column that it's on. Those are more or less counteractive against specific decks, and I ran that in there mainly because of the majority of the meta rather than specific matchup, or specific, you know, a lot of people running that deck anyways, or that type of matchup, you know, that stuff. I'm guilty of it because if I go all the way back to G-Era with Kagero, yeah, if you'll hear me using Kagero a lot in my examples. Belloc. Goes back to Belloc. It'll always go back to Bellog, and the reasoning behind this was because Pale Moon was a thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Magia Pale Moon was a thing, and it was annoying to go against. And I will say the admin of the Lakir page had the full force of that being, thrown at her, because I blogged her cards so much that she hated it. So that she hated that lizard card every time I've used it. That and Denial Chicken.
Oh god, Denial Chicken. I still hate Denial Chicken. It's like, I spent all this time trying to get my rear guard to like 60k, and you just gonna instantly blow it up. That's some bull.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. And like back in the day, it was hard because back when Magia was pretty prevalent, there wasn't a way to kind of kill off those rear guards, because all those rear guards literally just goes right back into the soul at the end of the turn. So you couldn't really, make Pale Moon lose advantage besides them losing their hand, which wasn't really that great, to be honest. Or trying to make them lose their hand wasn't that great because they drew so much, and if you couldn't kill rear guards, you didn't get much benefit out of your cards. That's kind of where the log came in, because what I noticed that whenever I played against Magia, the cat starter, Cat Knight and High Boots, or that starter. You remember that starter, the one that when you stride, you can pull it out and call something else also by its effect. That cat was annoying, and it was so free. The effect was so free. You just call it, and then you go to the effect, call parrots, and then skill to call something else, soul charge, call something else, and then you just create a field out of nothing almost. So what ended up happening was, at the very beginning, I got really, really annoyed because I think I lost a fair bit of games with Kagero, and Link Joker at the time wasn't really a big thing for me because it didn't have the support it needed, so I just went straight to Kagero. So I was just like, okay, what other cards can I use? There's got to be something that can kind of deal with that cat, or at least something, other cards. And that's where Belog came in, and I saw it. I saw people ran it as a tech in Japan, and I was like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting. Saw how it worked, and I was like, alright, I'm gonna tech like 2 to 3 in the deck. And when I went against the Magia deck, whenever the Vanguard swung or the Rear Guard swung or something, and I saw the cat was rested, I would just guard with a Belog and something else to make the attack not hit, and then straight up kill the cat.
Oh,
and yeah, because you just kill a rested unit as long as the attack didn't hit. So you just Belog with other shields, and then it's just like, alright, and it also played the mind game. It also gave the mind game of, does my opponent, my Kagero opponent, have the Belog to kill this card? Because then now you're scared to leave that cat on board, and so you wanted to find a way to put it back into the soul so that you can use it next turn. And so that kind of ruins the rhythm a little bit, which is good, because then at the very least, you're forcing them to play something they don't want to do. So yeah, but yeah, no, I'm guilty of doing that with like Belog and stuff like that. Yeah, no, I am super guilty doing that. I'll admit it. And technically, if anything, Freeze Ray is also another one that can be counted to that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Freeze Ray was a hard counter to Mel Normal Combo. I don't consider cards like Sacrifice Messiah to be counted as that, because Sacrifice is main decked anyways. It was just that you found a gimmick to where Sacrifice actually helps you against the normal combo. But Freeze Ray, Freeze Ray itself was a tech of its own. Yeah.
let's see. I think I've actually did it once in G-Era, and it kind of also goes back to something I said earlier about Great Nature.
Oh.
Cause like I said before, Hamsuke and Leopold, they're good units. They're very good units. But the moment you use their abilities, they're just vanillas on the Vanguard circle. And then remember, like I said, like during the Spring Fest, at that particular time, one of the most used decks was Murakumo, was the Shirayuki Dual Dragon build.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Standard, right? This is standard.
Yeah, and standard, yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. That was Zungeki, if I remember correctly, right? The Zungeki stuff, because that's when Shirayuki came out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because it was like somebody was Zimbaku me, I would be like maybe on Leopold, and not only I won't be able to ride, I'm on a vanilla unit.
Yep.
But if I was on Bison, then at least I got to do something with my Vanguard.
Yeah. Yeah. It's. I mean, for that matchup, yeah, I can totally understand that. Yeah.
And it was funny. I actually went against that matchup, and despite that I still won, I was very surprised. But then, like, the dude told me, like, Great Nature was already a good matchup against Murakumo, and I was like, I still to this day have not figured out like what he meant by that.
I think it might just be because it's hard to say, because like the fact that you can just bring out multiple Excel circles might also be the case, because you'd be one turn ahead of them in terms of Excel circles. That might be the reasoning. Like, if you can somehow get more markers than your opponent, or like, you know, be super consistent while doing that, you know, that's also why, like, if we look at the new Shadow Paladins in Phantasmal Steed, that's why Shadows is like doing pretty good, because they can just spam markers under Mordred Phantom.
Which, speaking of spamming markers, Bushiroad, stop it! Stop it! There is no reason why Genesis has the ability of gaining a force marker for guarding one of my attacks. How?
I mean, they do need to pay a counterblast, and they also need a Star Chanter as a Vanguard.
It's the principle of it.
I mean, people are going to find a way to abuse it, no matter what we do. Because, like, I was looking through the cards, and I was just like, yeah, no, I can abuse this pretty easily, too. And it's just more or less a matter of how you do it, and, like, what it'll take to do it. Now, the one thing that I actually have to look at is how much Star Chanters are there.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Because if there's not that many Star Chanters, that means you can't do it turn 1 or turn 2, really.
Oh god, if you could do return 1 or turn 2, that'd be best.
Yeah, and I'm looking so far. The only Star Chanter is Uranus, the Grade 3.
Oh yeah.
He is the only Star Chanter in the current lineup of cards. I don't think there's any other ones. I'm about to check just in case. Oh, never mind. There is a few. There's a few Star Chanters. My bad. So I guess besides Uranus, the Astrios Dragon, Quaking Dragon, the new grade 3 in the set. Quaking Heavenly Dragon, Astrios Dragon. He's also a Star Chanter. He's also a Cosmo Dragon. Oh no, this isn't even a Star Chanter. Oh, these are just support cards. Okay. So far there's no grade 1, no grade 2 Star Chanter. And it's only the grade 3s. So you can't even use it turn 1 or yeah. Most of the cards that require the Star Chanter you can't use turn 1.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so it's not as abusable as I thought it would be. At least it's that way, yeah.
Well, that's a little bit of good news.
Yeah, at least now we know that you can. The deck is gonna focus on building up soul and all this other stuff, and then it'll trigger off the the Star Chanter stuff when you ride your grade 3.
Oh yeah.
So at least it's not. At least it's not as busted at that point. Yeah.
And then you got Spike Brothers over here passing the
football
force marker. Yeah, basically passing the football.
I mean, that's kind of Spike Brothers is, they're football players.
But they're passing force markers.
I mean, would you rather them tagging out after an attack and doing BS amount of power?
Kind of. I mean, they're already getting the BS power with the force markers anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, like Hellheart 8 equivalent.
Oh, in that case, probably not.
Yeah, exactly. It's just. I mean, the gimmick itself is pretty interesting. I think the one oddball gimmick I'd have to say is the Megacolony one, out of all the new stuff.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we're playing Needleworm.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. You're playing Needleworm deck.
Yeah, now that I think about it, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the questions that I have. and basically everything about deck building from the both of us.
I mean, yeah. That's kind of like how I view, deck building, net decking, my opinion on this topic, because it's just like, I don't see the point. I don't see why people are so against it. It's just do what you can to, play the best you can, And for people who, complain about, oh, I keep losing against that deck, or blah, 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 well, look it up. Find out why you're losing against that deck. There's so many aspects to there's so many aspects to do well, and it's like, no one really apparently wants to go through all that research behind it.
That's true.
Yeah.
So, was there any final word? Well, unless those were the final words.
Oh, I didn't even know. Not really. Considering, I mean, if anything, comment your questions and stuff, or look through our pages if you've got questions or anything. I'm sharing this. I'm gonna share this once you put it up. So,
All right.
I'll share a post so that other people can question and stuff like that. So, I'm always up for helping people, but that's like I'm not gonna go out of my way to help them unless they take the time to ask. If you know what I mean.
True.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why. Like, if people want my opinion, go ahead and ask. I'm all for it. I'm always on my page, and I'll try to answer what I can. So yeah.
And the same goes from here whenever I can answer. God, I need to stop going AFK all the time.
Right? Nah, I mean, like, I have my phone, so I usually just,
That's true. So, with that being said, my name is Mrs. Nation, aka Savage Armor Jones Rafa.
And I'm the admin of the Chaos Burger page. And
yeah, see everybody then. Good night. Nobody go to Area 51 because I know from the day of this recording it's like a couple of days from now.
Oh, that's the 20th. That's on the 20th, right?
Yeah, it's on Friday.
Hey man, hey man, that's where all the military grade military grade rider systems and all this other shit is in there, right? Okay. That's where they're hiding the Power Ranger stuff too.
Damn.
The actual stuff, not the toys.
That's where they're hiding Stitch at.
Oh God. I would believe it too. I would if there was proof. I feel I don't know. But yeah. Hope you all be safe, and play more Vanguard, get better. All that good stuff.
Alright. There might also be like a good Yu-Gi-Oh format in the Area 51.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's called Keys.